Welcome to this next episode of Lifejacked, the Resilience Podcast with your host, Dr. Rowe. That's me. What do you do when life challenges you to discover your true potential? Today on Lifejacked, the Resilience Podcast, I am thrilled to welcome Dr. Ravi Iyer, a Harvard-trained physician, best-selling author, inventor, and healthcare leader whose journey from India to the esteemed halls of Harvard Medical School in Boston exemplifies the extraordinary power of intentional focus and resilience. With over 42 years of experience, Dr. Iyer has dedicated his career to empowering individuals to overcome distractions, embrace mindfulness, and achieve remarkable success in the face of adversity. His transformative TEDx talk, The Power of Intentional Focus, has inspired millions, including myself. And today, in this episode, we will uncover the wisdom behind his message of hope and intentional living. Hi, Dr. Iyer. Welcome. Thank you so much for being a guest on my show. How are you?
Good evening, Dr. Rowe. Thank you for having me. This is a pleasure.
Fantastic. Now, Dr. Iyer, can you share with us what first ignited your passion for medicine and science during your early days as a young child and how that shaped your dreams?
So, I was always a very inquisitive, curious child growing up. And unconsciously, I was always asking myself the question, how do things work? But more importantly, I would always ask the question, how does life work? My, my natural curiosity was more towards living creatures. So I would always ask myself, how does this animal work? How does this creature work? How does this bug or this fish or this frog work? And out of that came the subsequent corollary to that question, how do you make life work and how do you make life work when it doesn't work? And my entire life has been built around the answers, the search and the answers to these two questions. How does life work and how do you make it work when it doesn't? And that pretty much gave me a framework upon which to develop my entire curiosity by pursuit of the science of medicine. But from there, I went into research, and from there, I went back into clinical medicine and clinical research, where doing clinical trials in the hospital. Where I got elevated to chairman of the hospital. That same question became, how does the department work, and how does the hospital work, and how do you make the hospital work when it doesn't? So at every point, it is the same question asked in different flavors and different tones.
Wow, I love that. Now, we have critical moments in our lives where we experience either something really good, and then, of course, we sometimes experience something really bad. And when you have experienced these challenges that I refer to as the things that happen to us that are bad, how did you learn the essence of resilience early on in your career?
So resilience is basically what other people call a person who does not get paralyzed by circumstances. So resilience is more an opinion of the world, observing somebody who's behaving in a way that is not stoppable. But if you ask the person who's actually not being stopped, if you ask how they are perceiving the obstruction, you will find that they're actually perceiving the obstruction completely differently than somebody else who actually gets stopped. And what I found when I was growing up was I had two ways of looking at life. And I realized that there's one aspect of me that is available to experience life in the form of the input of my five senses, something that I see, something that I hear, something that I smell, or touch or taste. And those are my actual, that is actually my reality, the physical impressions that are gathered by my five senses. Then comes this second aspect, which is the meaning making machine that we all have, that creates a story, a narrative, a value judgment, something, a preference, a like or a dislike, and then based on that preference, a set of actions, and also a kind of imprinting of this current situation. And if it's a dislike, then a need to memorize how this situation looks, so that in a future situation when something looks similar to that, you can quickly avoid without having to interact with it. So out of this we create our lived experience. A lived experience is often not the same as our perceived experience, and
So
life
true.
actually exists in the perceived experience, not in the lived experience. And resilience is all about making sure that your lived experience is in harmony, is aligned with your perceived experience. A lot of people get sucked up in the story, the lived experience, and it is going off on a tangent based on a past. Like, let us say some guy with a beard rejected you. The next time you bump into a guy with a beard in the bar, your defenses are already up. Now, that means that right now, for this new guy, you are really not interacting with the perceived experience. You're interacting with the lived experience of the past, projecting the past into your future.
Right.
And and then you just recreate your past into your future. So, resilience completely resides in the ability to remain focused upon your perceived experience.
Oh no,
So,
that makes so much sense. That makes so much sense. So much sense. So I have to ask you about this phenomena that people talk about. For some, it's a diagnosed disability, and for others, they just kind of throw this term around to make an excuse for the reason why they can't focus, or they're distracted, or
mhm,
they're disorganized. And
sure,
that is using the term ADHD, which stands for attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, right? Or
yeah.
sometimes people refer to it as ADD, which is attention deficit
Hmm.
disorder. And a lot of times people throw that around. So, as a medical doctor, can you enlighten the viewers and the listeners and really explain, in the simplest terms possible, what exactly is ADHD and ADD? And is there a difference between the two?
So remember, I mentioned about the meaning making machine. Well, everyone has a meaning making machine. Yeah. A person with an ADHD or ADD has a meaning making machine that is turbocharged. It is going at the speed of a rocket. So, because of that, they create stories and narratives of of their perceived experience at a far greater intensity. And because of that, they are not able to hold on to the story long enough to execute the logical conclusion of actions that are dictated by the story. And therefore, they appear distracted because they'll get one meaning, and before they can even carry that meaning out to its logical conclusion, the next meaning comes up, and then the next meaning, and the next meaning, and they're spinning out of control. This is not a disorder, it is actually an extreme manifestation of a natural cognitive trait that everyone has, the meaning making machine. Now, the person, if you take an ADD person, he's basically having a thoroughbred horse capable of running the Triple Crown as his everyday ride, whereas the rest of the world has an average pony. Now, if the ADD person actually learns how to control his powerful machine, he will outrun the rest of the world in no time flat. And that's exactly what happens. So I was born with ADHD. I was born with Asperger's and ADHD. So I had not only the meaning making machine that was capable, I was also had an extreme creativity that would see things differently than the rest of the world. But
Mhm.
I didn't have any control. The thing that makes a car go fast is
Mhm.
not the accelerator. It is the power to brake that allows you to go fast. If
Ah,
your brakes failed, you will
mm.
you will take your foot off the accelerator. You
Yeah,
will not run. You will not go fast.
that's true.
So going fast
Mm.
requires control. And if you don't have control, you will just keep on going from one crash to another crash.
Mm.
Most ADHD and Asperger's people have a lifetime of crashes until they get control. And the minute they get control, they become like Elon Musk. You can't stop them.
Hey, I totally understand that. Now, within this ADHD work that you've done, so you have a TED Talk, and I want to put that up here for people to see, or TEDx Talk. You have a few TED Talks actually, but this particular one is called The Power of Intentional Focus. So, how did you discover this life changing concept, and how has it influenced your personal and professional journey?
So, like I mentioned, I had ADHD and I would struggle, but because I had also this Asperger's, I had a photographic memory. So I managed to do very well in school, well enough to get into medical school. And I went to Patna to do my medical school. And in Patna, every morning, my college was close to the Ganges. Every morning, I would go swim in the Ganges, and then I would sit down for a hot breakfast. And when I would sit down for a hot breakfast, the temple mahouts, the elephant keepers of the temple, would bring the temple elephants down the street where I was having my breakfast, down on their way to the river for their bath. And now the elephants' trunks would wander everywhere. They'd go grab coconut, fruit, create mischief of all kinds. And to prevent this, the mahouts gave the elephant a chain to hold in its trunk. And holding this chain prevented the trunk from going off and grabbing at other things because they gave the trunk a job. And when I saw this, I suddenly realized, hey, I need to give my mind a job, some kind of an internal chain to hold on to so that it doesn't go spinning off into idea after idea. So I started researching how to do this, and I found an ancient 5,000-year-old Sanskrit textbook on meditative techniques, and there were many techniques in that book. But I was looking for something that I could use easily for myself at any time, and I found this technique of breath watching, and I started watching my breath. And actually, recently there's actual research papers showing that breath watching has profound benefits in ADHD. At that time, when I was growing up in India, nobody knew ADHD existed in India. I had no treatment. I had no therapy, nothing. I trial and error, mistakes, a lot of falls and pick me ups. I figured my way through it, and I started doing this breath watching. And initially, my periods of focus was sporadic, but then it became better and better until I could remain in a zone of total focus. Now the psychologists call it a flow state, but I could enter that flow state at will and remain. And not only that, I could do a task in perfect flow, stop in mid sentence or mid work,
Wow.
go to another task, be in perfect flow, and then switch back to the first without losing. I became that good at it later on. And that became the theme of my TED talk, where I described the value of flow and how to develop flow. And when you develop flow, not only does it affect ADHD people, but it
Mhm.
affects everyone. During the pandemic, we were able to teach our patients to focus on the immediate reality using flow state so that they did not spin off out of control in their fear driven narratives of what is going to happen to them or their family. So it made a huge difference.
I could imagine. I know for me during the pandemic, it was very difficult because I'm an extrovert and I love being around people. And so,
Yeah,
of
yeah,
course, I started a podcast, another podcast, not this one, but I started another podcast at that time just so that I could connect with people and
yeah,
talk to people.
yeah. Yeah, the entire world got shoved into an isolation tank
Yes.
during the pandemic.
No, absolutely. And so, with this power of intentional focus, which I know at times for some of us, it's harder than others. And, in your work, you emphasize staying fully present amid life's chaos. And I know at times, especially right now, I don't know about you, but it just seems like the world is very chaotic right now. And especially here in the United States, it's just a little chaotic right now. Things are just happening left and right. And it's like we can't control it. I mean, we can't control it anyway, but it just seems like there are all these life jacked moments happening around us all the time. And it's causing, an extreme amount of stress. So, how do we stay fully present amidst this chaos?
So the key to presence in the midst of chaos, first of all, life by its very nature is chaotic. It has always been chaotic. It is neither more chaotic nor less chaotic in the present moment. It'll always be this way. So once you get past that, no amount of chaos can really shake you. Once you realize that this is the nature of life, to be chaotic. Then the second part of it is people in this world, the vast majority, they live as if time and space are the definitive boundaries that define their existence. When in reality, time is actually your memory, so it's a mental construct. You take one event that you remember and you call it the past. You take a hope or a dream of yours and project it and call it a future. Neither the event that you remember exists anymore at this point, nor is your plan or anticipated event ever going to happen with any surety, and that is your future. So both time is entirely a function of your memory. If you go to an Alzheimer's patient, he has no time because he has no memory. Now, the second thing is space. Space is entirely a construct based on your perception, your ability to measure objects through your vision and through your physical ability to touch and feel.
Right.
If you did not have these sensory tools of perception, space would be different. Space for an earthworm is different. Space for a bumblebee is different. All right. So space is not a fixed entity. It is a perception created entity based on the sensory tools that an organism uses to measure its environment. So once you get past these two definitions, time and space are completely, entirely invented, created, then everything that is defined within that time and space is your construct. But one thing remains that is not your construct, your ability to be aware of it. You actually are a space within which all these events pop up as options, as stories, as narratives. Once you realize that your space of being within which the entire universe pops up as an event is a constant, then you really are not defined by what pops up. You are defined by your ability to interact with it. That
Yeah.
is completely in your control. And not only that, your entire identity shifts. You shift from being a product of your interaction to being the originator of the interaction. As
Mm,
an originator, you're a constant being. You're a constant timeless being. There is neither beginning nor end to you, because you're just pure awareness within which Dr. Rowe appears, this podcast appears, this conversation appears.
yeah.
Something that does not happen tomorrow, like a plan that does not materialize, that also appears. So all of that are within an infinite timeline of your being. Once you get that, you can just dance through life.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, the modern world bombards us, and I literally mean bombards us with constant stimulation. I mean, you name it. It's whether it's from social media or it's from, television, all these different shows, reality shows, the news, just the conversations around us on the day-to-day basis. So, what strategies do you suggest for maintaining the dopamine that truly matters? Because if you're not careful, there are a lot of things that you can focus on that truly don't matter, or you can't really control the outcome in a sense most times.
Like I said in the previous question, the chaos of the world is nothing more than the stimulations of the modern world. And your ability to pay attention, if you shift your attention to the act of being aware of things and allow the various options of your life to emerge as narratives, but don't grab onto it. So you got to practice this. You have to practice observation. Just like you practice going to a gym and lifting weights to build muscle, this is a mental muscle that you have to exercise at. And what I tell people is exercise observational skills, observation without judgment. So, for example, the Japanese tea ceremony where they make a cup of tea and serve it, it's an entirely an observational exercise. Breath watching is an observational exercise. Um, Painting can be an observational exercise where you just watch the flow of colors. Don't try to go into a judgment, evaluation, and meaning, but feel the flow. Once you get into the realm of feeling, then that is entirely in the realm of observation. And in that realm of observation, you have a sanctuary of space, and you can allow meaning to pop up, and you can decide which meaning you want to give. You want to give the full power of your attention to, if it is in alignment with your grounding narrative. Now, everyone has a grounding narrative that they need to define for themselves. But once you identify your grounding narrative, you can choose which narratives are actually in alignment with your grounding idea of your life. And then you can give that particular narrative the full force of your attention.
No, that makes sense. Now, do you feel that Eastern practices in medicine have influenced your approach to healthcare at all, in leadership as well?
Yeah, I mean, like I grew up in a country where we lived with Eastern medicine. So right now I practice Western medicine, but I borrow extensively from Eastern medicine, and I freely interchange. The body does not know West or East. The body only knows molecules. So if there is an Eastern herb that produces the molecules that will benefit my patient, I'll use it. I am interested in the creation of health, which is nothing more than the ability to live life well to the satisfaction of your goals, no matter what. So anything that produces that is medicine. So under those circumstances, ability to think clearly is medicine. Good sleep is medicine, good friendships, good conversations, things that allow you to become empowered is good medicine. That's all.
Yeah, here's to good medicine. I think we all like good medicine.
Yeah.
Now, you often mention that it's important to for someone to find one's grounding narrative. What exactly does that concept mean, and how can the viewers or listeners start crafting their own grounding story?
So everyone in this world has many talents and they have one gift. And the business of life is to find out what your gift is. You, your gift is something that is unique to you, that you basically can give to anybody and you would not become poor by giving it. And it is the core of your being, and you have to find that. Your talents are all the skills and abilities you bring to the service of your gift. Your grounding narrative in your life is anything that allows you to manifest your gift. So, for me, my grounding narrative is empowerment. And my gift is the ability to make people free of fear. I can get into a room and I talk to a person, I can erase fear from their being. So, under those circumstances, my grounding narrative is the task of empowerment. And to that, I bring into its service all my talents, my eloquence, my writing skill, my analytical abilities, my abilities in medicine, my knowledge as a chemist, my knowledge of Eastern and Western medicine, my knowledge of human behavior. All of that I bring as my talents to the service of my grounding narrative of empowerment and removal of fear from the being of human beings. That is what I mean by finding your grounding narrative. Each one has to have that. Somebody's grounding narrative may be playing divine music. Another person's grounding narrative, it's a gift that allows people to expand their presence when they are in your presence. That is a grounding narrative. It is the ground and basis of your existence.
Got that. Okay. Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. And I understand that, it is important to find your grounding narrative. I think for me is doing this resilience work. It's so
Yeah,
important to me. And the fact that I can connect with an
yeah,
audience of people and give them motivation and have people share their
yeah,
stories
yeah,
of how they push through
yeah.
in times of adversity. It's fantastic. I tell you that this show gives me so much joy and pleasure. It really does. Now, you have so many diverse roles: researcher, hospice director, hospital chairman. How do you balance it all and maintain, each of these different roles?
Well, I don't do all of them now, but there was a time when I was doing both. I was both the hospital chair as well as hospice director. Um, the beauty of intentional focus is once you master focus, you can enter a flow state. Once you enter a flow state, whatever is in front of you is the only thing that exists. So to the world, it looks like as if I'm doing multiple things. To me, from my perspective, it looks as if I'm only doing one thing at a time. So it becomes ridiculously easy to do only one thing at a time because that's the only thing that my mind is engaged in. Most people don't have that. They engage in something, but they don't engage it fully. A part of their mind is going off into some other tangent somewhere else. And that because of that, they become schizophrenic. They become split, multiple personality disorders, basically. And as a result, their effectiveness falls when you do only one thing and that's the only thing you're doing, it's easy to do it well.
No, I understand that. At times, I have that same question as to me. It's like, how do you do everything that you do? You work full time. You're a
Yeah,
mom of three. You have a podcast. You have a newsletter. You have friends and a book
yeah,
club, and I do all these things. And I'm like, how do you do that? And it's exactly what you said.
yeah,
One, time management.
yeah, yeah,
But I have to have incredible or intentional focus is important, and that's what I have
yeah.
is that I focus on whatever activity I'm doing at the time, and I put my energy into that particular activity.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that's really cool. Yeah. So now you have several patents and you have contributed to, contributed immensely to medical science, including co authoring a book entitled, I'm sorry, a book titled Squirrels in My Brain. So I'm sorry. Yes, Squirrels in My Brain. So, what do you hope readers take away from this book?
So, Squirrels in My Brain came out of a project that I was doing with the co-authors. These are two students, Mediha Nakwi and Raquel Paz Bergia. And it started with a conversation, and they wanted to do some research project. And got talking about neurodiversity, and we wanted to see if we could identify strategies that HR people and corporations could use to tap into the diverse cognitive powers that their employees have. 20% of the workforce is considered to be neurodivergent, and they are suboptimally employed because managers don't understand how to employ ADHD and Asperger's people to their best ability in a workforce and a work policy that does not recognize the unique nature of these cognitively empowered individuals. These people are not cognitively disordered individuals. They are cognitively empowered. They are like rocket powered engines in a world of bullock carts. And the world of bullock carts is accusing these rockets of going and crashing up the road. And that's the problem. Uh, all they need is the rockets need their own lane where the bullock carts don't go. And that's exactly what Squirrels in My Brain tells. How do you construct a work environment that gives the bullock carts the freedom of the way as well as the rockets the freedom of the way without the two constantly clashing and all of them aligned to the corporate goal of getting some product out or some service rendered? So that is the whole idea.
No, most definitely. It is difficult to have focus at times, as we've talked about over and over in this conversation.
Yeah,
But I love that if you have intentional focus, that it really can empower individuals, that then dominoes into empowering communities.
yeah.
Um, so, what qualities do you feel that are essential for leaders to foster resilience and also support people who are, as the people call, neurodivergent within their environment?
Every leader does only two things for their tribe. The leader creates a space of safety for his tribe by eliminating the risk of life. That's the first thing. And they do this by predicting how life will emerge, and they allow their tribe the resources to claim their advantage at whatever comes their way. And the second thing is a leader shoulders the full burden of failure and allows their tribe to have the complete freedom to innovate without the risk of the penalty of failure. So these are the two things. One is prediction, and the second is elimination or the taking on the responsibility of failure. If
Mm,
leaders start doing that, then automatically, whether their workforce has neurotypical or
yeah.
neurodiverse, they all become neuro aligned. And that is something that I say in my book, in the book Squirrels in My Brain. We bring out the concept not of neurodiversity or accommodation, we talk about actual alignment. Let's talk about cognitive alignment. Let's talk about neuro alignment, because these two words, cognitive alignment and neuro alignment, are non judgmental, they are neutral, and they are enabling across the board. It is not like you're taking away something from the normal neurotypical people and giving it to the neurodiverse people, or vice versa. So all this anger and argument over DEI just fades away into nothing when you talk about alignment. Alignment is the actual purpose, and it is the spirit of DEI. So instead of talking of DEI as DEI, I talk about it as alignment. How do we get the
Yeah.
five fingers of my hand are unequal? They are unequal in length, size, shape, and power. But when they are aligned, they form a fist that can punch through walls. So that's what I talk about in companies or in groups.
I love that analogy. Oh my gosh, I've never thought of that with my hand. Yeah, they are all different lengths, but you're right. When they come together and make a fist, I mean, I don't know if I make a
Yeah,
powerful punch, but I try.
yeah.
Yeah. So, for those just beginning their career in science or medicine, what advice would you offer to them to help them to remain focused and resilient in an ever evolving industry? Because it is difficult to get through medical school. I don't feel like that's an easy thing to reach that finish line. So, what advice could you offer to those individuals?
Um, the first thing is focus on the fact that the the entire world, every human being in this world wants only three things. They want to be seen, they want to be heard, and they want to be validated. And if you as a physician can provide that, then you will succeed no matter what. That's the first thing. Make sure that every interaction you have with people allows them to feel seen, heard, and validated at whichever point they are. Where they are, you meet them where they are and make sure that they are seen, heard, and validated. Second, in the interaction where you make them feel seen and heard and validated, make sure always that you are also equally seen, heard, and validated. If you cannot do these two things at the same time, walk away.
Yeah.
Walk
Mm,
away. That last part is where a lot of doctors have difficulty. They spend their time seeing, hearing, and validating the rest of the world and forget about themselves. They need to
yeah.
be seen, heard, and validated themselves. Otherwise, they can't do that first part. And if they can't do both, if they only can validate themselves but not them, or vice versa, then they need to walk away. And this this is the essence of being successful in medicine.
Wow. Wow. So I have to ask, how do you envision the role of intentional focus in shaping the future of healthcare research and community empowerment? I mean, how can, we be more intentional in our focus as we continue to navigate this world?
So the fundamental core essence of human beings is to seek happiness. That is why we do everything we do. We all are only trying to find a space where we feel validated, empowered, and our full, complete being. The problem is we think that we will get that outside in achieving any one of those stories that pop up in the circumstances of our life. In actuality, we can achieve it right sitting in your chair through focus. If you focus on just yourself as a space of possibility, in which all the stories and options and narratives and possibility, the various situations of your life, they pop up as emerging possibilities that you can decide whether it is in alignment with your grounding narrative. If it is in alignment with the grounding narrative, you pull it in, pay it your attention, play with it. If it is not in alignment with your grounding narrative, forget it. Focus on your grounding narrative. Remain constantly anchored to your grounding narrative like your elephant's chain. All right. And your whole life will just flow like as if there is, it is as if you are caught up on on a powerful current that carries you to the finish line with no effort on your part instead of having to fight against the current with every stroke. It's a
Yeah.
lot of
Wow.
fun. It's a lot of fun living life that way.
Most definitely. And I mean, I think we all want to have fun. And you're right. That's what we search for. We do the supposedly you should do your work, right? It should be something that you enjoy. And as you're spending time with different people, it should bring you joy and you should experience happiness.
No, it's
And
more than should. It's more than should. If you
yeah.
actually know your grounding narrative, then you
Hmm.
will not, there is no should in your life. Like, for
Yeah.
example, there is no should for water to be wet and flow.
Ah.
There is no should for fire to have heat and light. It is just the way it is. So when
Mm.
people find their grounding narrative, they just be the way they are. They have no should about them. They just do it as a natural expression of their own being. Just like the way you and I breathe.
Yeah.
You don't sit and contemplate every breath and say, I should take my next breath. It's just natural.
True. Very true. Very true.
Yeah.
Well, Dr. Iyer, it's hard to believe that this conversation is coming to an end, but I have to ask, my final question is the question that I ask everyone, which is, what is, in your opinion, the best way for someone to build resilience, whether they have trouble focusing, have trouble developing or understanding what they're grounding or creating their grounding narrative, or just maybe they've reached their breaking point?
There is a power that brought you into being. For example, before you were born, 500 million spermatozoa lost the race to the one spermatozoa that fertilized your mother's egg and became you. And after that happened, the precise arrangement of genes that made who you are has never existed in the entire history of the universe. And after you dissolve into the elements of the universe, that genetic combination will never again exist. If you once you realize the extreme rarity that you actually are, it is absolutely impossible for you to even consider that you could ever fail. You really need to know this. People need to know how rare each one of them are. There's never been a person like you before. There's never be a person like you again. And you were a winner out of 500 million. before you were even conceived.
Wow. Well, Dr. Iyer, your journey from India to the corridors of Harvard is nothing short of inspirational. Your insights on mindful presence and resilience remind us that even amidst modern distractions, we have the power to reclaim our focus and rewrite our own narratives. As we wrap up today's conversation, I hope the viewers and listeners feel empowered to seek their inner silence, build their grounding narrative, and find purpose in every challenge. Before we sign off, Dr. Iyer, please let our viewers and listeners know where they can connect with you, find copies of your books, or book you for speaking.
Oh, you can just go on to my website. It's www.driyyer.com. You can look at me on LinkedIn, Facebook. Um, I'll just put my website in the chat. And but that is the most common uh, ways to actually come to my website. And yeah, there it is, driyyer.com. And you can book a 15, 20, 30-minute call with me to talk about what you want to have accomplished, and we can figure out how to get it accomplished.
Do you have any last words of encouragement for the listeners?
It's a wonderful life. Go live it. Whatever you were meant to do, go do it. That's all there is.
Thank you for sharing your extraordinary story and practical wisdom with us on Lifejacked, the Resilience Podcast. Your message encourages us all to focus intentionally and live passionately. I want to wish you and your family nothing but blessings and abundance. Please take care.
Thank you.
Dr. Ravi Iyer, everyone, be sure to join me next time for more uplifting stories and insights on resilience. Until then, keep pushing forward, embrace the journey, and remember that every setback can lead to a greater comeback. Dr. Rowe, signing off.